Village of Jacksonville Electric, January 14th, 2025. And we have our agenda here. No public. Any changes to the agenda?
No changes. The only thing I wanted to add is, I'm sure most of you heard by now that Tyler was in a motor vehicle accident. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday morning. He is doing okay. He's in Dartmouth right now. He's got a broken hip and needs a hip replacement or hip surgery or something. I'm not exactly sure what. So he will be missing tonight's meeting. There's a card, a get well card on top of my laptop right there. If you guys can sign that before we leave, that would be great. Otherwise, I think everything should be going pretty much as planned.
Any idea what happened?
I'm not exactly sure, but my understanding, not from Tyler, my understanding from other people is that the other car lost control from ice heading towards Wilmington.
Yeah.
And Tyler was heading towards work. Based on where his car is in the picture, he doesn't look like he moved at all.
Yeah, I've lost it in that corner.
Yeah.
Coming up.
It's a pretty bad area.
Well, I was trying to figure out how I could lose it from today. I was trying to figure it out.
Well, that's a tough corner there.
You
know,
if it's at all
down
icy.
below.
Yeah.
Down below it is even worse.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But it just doesn't get much sun there.
No.
Yeah.
Pretty cold.
But I'm trying to lost it coming up to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tree or something.
And John, who's the
Tourism, yeah. I haven't heard. I heard he's still in Brattleboro or got discharged.
Okay.
But my understanding is he was in a little bit better shape than Tyler was. But Tyler, I just checked on him, and it was a quick conversation. It wasn't anything too detailed.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll hear more in the next couple of.
They spent a long time investigating that.
Yeah, it's usually about 6 hours when it's a fatal. So.
I drove by there yesterday afternoon and there was a lot of sand on the road.
Yeah. And what I keep saying to people in the fire department is a very similar looking damage wise to what the bus accident was that we had. A really very, very similar situation. Just goes to show you how lucky he was that he survived here.
You had one down here the other day, right?
We did on 8A, or just that was technically 112, but on the bridge.
Yeah, the bridge.
But
yeah.
Busy week
on that bridge once.
Yeah. This was just before the bridge. They hit the guardrail. They lost it trying to get around the corner and went sideways into the guardrail, which then sent them into the car on the other side. So
guardrail's been replaced a few times.
Yes, it needs it again.
I paid for it once.
They're not cheap.
No.
They're not cheap.
You guys have your minutes.
And I do apologize. I never did send out the minutes. I didn't even notice that they were sent in.
Oh.
And then I went to look at them and went, oh.
Well, I was looking for the minutes.
They weren't in the pre-packet. I completely forgot about them. And then when you walked in today, I bet I had minutes from her. That's what I heard. So I haven't even had a chance to read.
Oh, geez. Yeah, it being late or something, or you weren't
It
in.
probably wasn't in.
Yeah.
Is that an extra packet over there with the minutes in it?
Yes.
Oh, is that yours that you
That's mine
printed
I
out?
got home.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Don't look at that. That's out of date at this point.
That's out of history, huh?
Yeah. A lot changed over the last 2 days. So Second page, AP, ABS. That's the auditor
Where's that?
right here.
ABS.
Yes. Otherwise, it looks different.
Um, I don't know where the appropriate place to bring it up, but in the minutes, I'd asked for you to look into Linda's pay,
Yes.
and we can talk about that at another time or whatever.
Sure, I have to refresh my memory on what Mary Lee and I looked at. We did look at it. But it was what we put in, what we put in for pay was screwed.
I don't understand how you can have hours at 15 and the same and a lower paycheck.
I believe it was that there was a holiday in there. Is why
And it wasn't recorded as hours.
it should be recorded as hours and it wasn't.
Got it. Because I'll wait for you to come back in.
Sorry, what was that?
I'll wait for you to come back in. So does anybody want to make a motion to,
I move we accept the minutes with corrections.
okay,
Second that motion.
thank you, Don. All in favor, sorry. Aye. Well, wait for James.
Do you want to do this now or do you want
We can wait.
Two minutes, sorry.
We can do the treasurer's report.
Okay,
Mhm.
not too much different from other reports that we've had. Our checking is at 67.17 and 49 cents. Money market is at 69.890 and 17 cents. That seems to be growing $5,000 or so every month.
which is because of the 4,300 that we're putting in for taxes every month,
Yes,
plus interest, plus if we get a check from TransCal, we put it in there as well. So that's what the growth is.
right,
Which is good.
which is good. And we're still carrying the 22,933.50 from Great River Hydro.
Why?
Any more info on that? When do they want it?
I've asked them and they didn't even know that we had it, so I'm not sure when they're gonna take that. I can reach out to Matt Cole and see if he has looked into it. He said he didn't even know that we had it.
Well, if they want to gift it to us, it's okay.
What I was thinking. Our auditors have already asked about it and I said that we still have it and they said, okay, that's fine as long as.
Just no accountable for it.
Yeah, we're still accountable for it.
If they're not going to take it back, I'd like to throw it into
An
another
interest bearing
account.
account, right,
and get some interest on it.
right.
Yeah.
I guess there's a disconnect between the team that is in charge of kind of managing their financials, I guess, and the team that was doing the actual build engineering. There's a disconnect there. So I guess there wasn't really an understanding that we had money.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure they know how to take it back without it looking weird on their books. So
They don't need to rush.
that's
But if
kind
they
of what
give
I
us a
think.
timeline,
We could at
get
least
6
plan.
months of interest out of it.
We could do a 6-month CD. And we can-
So that's,
Looks all right to me, and I make a motion to accept the treasury report, statement of cash accounts here.
James, do you want to go over the statement of cash accounts and the debit?
yeah,
I didn't say, you want me to go through the rest of them?
yes, please.
Okay. So for the statement of debt, there's a disconnect right now between what I think this was last month too. And Vepsa and I are trying to figure out what it is, about what I say our beginning balance was and what they said. Theirs appears to be correct. I'm just trying to reconcile what invoices were paid versus not, and why there's a discrepancy there. And so that's why your beginning balance doesn't match the ending balance for November. They're off by 80,000 or so.
What are you looking at?
This page, the November
Okay, yes.
ending balance for Vepsa doesn't
Yeah.
match the beginning balance for December. So we're just trying to reconcile that and figure out why that is. I don't have that right now. That I anticipate the Vepsa numbers are correct. But I just be aware of that. I don't want you to look at the numbers and go, why are they different?
Yeah, there's something wrong there.
As to why they're not matching. Yeah. So that's I believe their numbers are correct. I just need to figure out why and what.
So did you manually
I
enter-
manually overrode it.
overrode
Yeah.
the 528,
Yeah, just so you had an accurate number for this one,
which is Vepsa's number?
which is Vepsa's number.
Got it.
Correct.
So when you do this again for the next meeting, you'll have it corrected by that point?
I should.
Put a little asterisk there,
Yeah.
so,
Yep. Makes sense. Yep.
okay.
Yep. I'm just making it up. Sorry.
You're fine. Me too.
So we did add 64,000. That's where you see the debits for Vepsa. So we added $64,000 to our debt, and then interest was another $3,100. You see both those numbers.
Yes. Yep.
But we paid 70,000.
Yeah.
Which made us only go up by a couple thousand in the end. We paid quite a bit last month, which was
Right.
good. Finally getting us to a point where the
We're
amount of
paying-
money coming in is also helping with the amount of money going out. And I think we should be in pretty good shape to do that again this month.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years, we should have it paid off.
For 6 or 7 years, we still be in real good shape. So that's the debt. Obviously, we're steadily paying down our truck. I did ask Vepsa. Vepsa, I think I mentioned this last month. We do have a bond that Vepsa is handling for Velco. We're part owners of Velco. Vepsa's owners of Velco. Velco has done an earnings call essentially and asked all the owners to pay a pretty high amount, like $150 million over the next 8 years, I think it is, something like that. Obviously, we can't financially do that, nor could any of the utilities, including Green Mountain Power. So we're looking to bond that. You won't actually see a whole lot of change because essentially we get dividends from Belco, and then those dividends pay the owner's equity. And so it's kind of a net wash in the end. But at the same time, when they ask for it all up front, we're in a tight position. So they're looking at bonding. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've asked for our debt that we owe to VEPSA to be included in that bond because it's a 3% interest rate. Obviously that is going to have to go through your approval and everything, but at least explore it and see if that's a possibility. It's probably not a possibility, but if it was, it would be a great opportunity for us to, over a 30-year period, finance the debt instead of.
What's this stuff for?
This is what we owe VEPSA, this 528,000 that we owe them.
Oh, so they're asking for their money from all of the
from all the
utilities?
utilities in the state of Vermont,
Okay, and
including Green Mountain Power and everybody.
they're looking at,
So VEPSA is looking at floating a bond for Velco to be the finance arm of Velco. Because Velco itself can't do a bond. They're not a public utility.
Yeah.
Whereas VEPSA could float it for them and say, we're going to give you everything up front and we'll float the bond and everybody will pay us, the amount per year that is owed, which we already are paying essentially. Well, we shouldn't see that much of a difference.
So the 3% would be,
3% is the interest rate on the bond. That's what the
Interest
bond, that's what the bond bank's giving for interest rate, right?
Okay.
As of,
so,
well, go ahead.
so if they would accept our 528,000 as part of it, we'd be paying 3%
correct.
on that.
We've been paying 3% on the 500,000 that we would owe.
And
I don't think it'll actually.
how will
work.
we offset that?
That's part of what we'll have to figure out. Because right now we're offsetting at 8%. But we're not offsetting at 8% towards VEPSA. Because VEPSA is 8% right now.
I see. Okay.
So the hope is to lower the
So-
interest rate and expend it over a longer period of time, which would in turn give us a lower payment that we could actually afford to pay back.
That would be nice if they do that.
Yes, it would be. I don't know if they're going to.
Well-
It's worth a shot.
Velco.
No,
That's-
the Vermont Bond Bank would be the
Oh,
one
the Vermont
financing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they are willing to do it, then that would be great. Usually they like some sort of collateral, but at the same time, we're not asking for collateral on the Velco loan either. So it might work, it might not. VEPS is going to check into it for us and see if it's possible.
Okay.
So the alternative I brought up a few meetings ago was to take a mortgage out on this building. That'd be an opportunity to do that as well. Obviously, that's a higher interest rate right now as well. It's about 8 or 9%. So we're trying to explore some options because I've even said to VEPSA, I don't see VEPSA is not going to allow us to do 30 years to pay this back, and I don't see us paying it back in anything less than 15 years or so. I just don't see it happening. It could, that'd be great, but with what we're having for income, I don't see that happening.
Yes.
So.
Unless we start generating something.
Exactly. All right. So the next page is the receivable statement.
Yep.
So on the receivable statement, the first section is the calculated bills. So this is, we're seeing each month how much we bill. You can see for the month of December, the bill was actually $109,000. So that's an increase. As I said, I think that the bills are billing correctly now, and I think that there's a possibility that in NIMRIC they weren't, particularly on the industrial side of things. And we were actually underbilling, is my hunch. Because in November, if you remember when we had our meeting in December, I said that seems high at the 84. Now we have the surcharge, the rate increase, and we're still seeing that high number at 109. So and it's the time of year as well. The time of year is a high usage time of year.
Yeah.
So of the 109, you can see I added in this cash received. So this is to date. So this changes every day as we receive more cash. So to offset that 109,000 that we have in a receivable account, so far we've gotten 78,700 this month. Do you see that on there? So that's that number right there. So I just updated that just before this meeting.
Well, not in my packet.
It is not in your packet. That's right. Because it was 50 something in here.
52,
Yeah,
28.
52. So that updated before this meeting was 78,700 was that number. That was
78,700.
78,700. Yeah.
55 and 55 cents.
I can pass that around if anybody wants to see it. So that's good. I mean, you're seeing we're already, looking pretty good for the month.
Yeah.
Bills are due tomorrow. So we won't hit that 109,000 that we are expecting. But if you look at last month, we had billed for 84,400 and we got 83,200. So pretty close. We weren't too far off. I just thought this was a cool way of being able to look at what we're seeing for bills versus what we're getting paid.
Right.
And obviously, if there's big discrepancies, that will red flag to us. But again, this report, because of the timing of our meeting, is a little hard to get it 100% accurate at any given time. And we took $18,000 in payments yesterday, just to give some perspective.
Yeah.
So when I sent this pre-meeting packet out, it still wasn't even close to being.
What's the last net receivables number?
So the net receivables is the difference between the two. So essentially that's how much is left at the end. So this was our aged receivables at the end of each of the, and it's important to know these are calculated bills. These are not receivable. These are not aged receivables. So we didn't bill 109,000 for everything. We actually billed 217,000 because people still owed us money.
Yeah.
But that was what our actual calculated bill for this month was, and this is what we received total cash.
Yeah.
So it's not,
right.
You may get a number that's bigger in cash received than calculated bills at some point. Right. Hopefully, that would be good.
So is there a new number then?
30.
Yeah, it's 30, 2024 December is 30,552.
And that's instead of the 57,278?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
All right. The last report I have on that in the treasurer's report is just the budget status report. It's the end of the year. The only thing that's not 100% up to date, and you'll see this when we go through our final budget, is essentially the way it's working now is we have $109,000 that in December we put into a receivables account. That money is stuff we should receive. That goes into NIMRIC as a receivables account. As we get the money in, we plug it in, but you don't get to that 100% until the end of the month. So we're still receiving in this residential sales line and the commercial and industrial. So these lines in theory will go up. Line, it's probably like the 10th line down. This is income. Income is the top part. And the bottom part, all the rest of it is the expenses. So those should go up in theory. I plugged in where we are at currently into the budget, my draft budget.
Okay.
So you see, but you'll see the budget looks like it's $90,000 short because of that. And we'll get to that when we look at the budget.
So
But that's all it is.
on your bottom line here.
Yep.
As this is printed, we're 7% over budget.
Correct.
And can you highlight where that might
Yep.
have mostly occurred?
So the purchase power was slightly over by about $17,000. That was a big part of it. Purchase power is obviously the uncontrollable really here.
Yep.
We do our best to estimate it, but it is something that can change depending on the time of year. Green Mountain Power maintenance lines was a big one. That was mostly the car accident we had down the road.
Right.
In February, there was $25,000. If we didn't have that $25,000 expense, we'd be perfectly in line with our budget on that line item.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some slight things that are over. One thing that we budgeted for audit, I budgeted $9,200 for an audit. They billed us $17,000. So that was, kind of stood out. I did get the property tax pretty close. Oh, and that the other one was, we didn't budget to replace our bucket truck this year.
Right.
And that was something that we did have an increase, obviously.
Property insurance.
So when you put the new numbers in,
That
that,
property insurance is really high, and I want to look into that more.
when you plug the new numbers in, that percentage is going to come down. It's at 107 now.
Which one? The truck specific one, or
No.
oh, you mean the total?
Percent of budget.
Yeah,
Total.
so we'll be doing, once I get approval on a budget, I'll plug that in and we'll start over and it'll be zero. Well, when we'll be working towards a new.
No, what I'm saying is that once you get final numbers in here.
Yeah.
And you kind of close off the end of December.
Yeah.
That's gonna look better, is it not?
It should look slightly better.
Like,
I wouldn't hold your breath too much.
No.
I think it's pretty close.
Yeah.
But yeah, in theory, it should be a little slightly better than that.
I once had a superintendent tell me if I didn't come within 0.5% of what I had budgeted, he'd fire me.
Wow, really? No, I think it was before you started. When I came in, I think Jen, you were the one who said you really want to get a budget.
Mhm.
And I think within, I don't know, it was the first month or second month, we put a budget together, and I remember kind of saying, I'm kind of winging it here. We don't really know what finances actually look like.
Right.
So I actually think it's pretty good. And this is our first year that we can actually use a budget to build a new budget, which is nice to be able to see.
Yes.
And I will say, the income area, the sales area, we're still learning. So I would even say I'm probably maybe 85 or 90% confident in the budget that I just created,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really hard to know what I'm pretty confident in the expenses. It's the income that, if somebody puts a solar system in, it changes everything. It's very difficult to plan that. So, it's just trying to do our best that we can with our budget, with where we're at. I think that's the whole treasurer's report.
Bud, you're on.
You want to make your motion again
Make your motion again? Now that we've heard it all,
to approve the treasurer's report?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll move.
anybody want a second?
Something.
Alrighty. Yeah, all in favor? Aye.
I didn't realize these other papers was a treasurer's
That's
report.
fine.
Yeah.
I'll follow up. Yeah, otherwise I'd have held up a little bit.
Okay, we got outstanding BEPSA. Do we need to go over that
You
again?
don't really have to go through it. Just a reminder, this last column is what we actually paid. So all of our invoices were 525,000. We paid 70,000. Although that calculation isn't working. The new balance is matching what the old balance was. So I gotta look at that and see what's going on there.
But you did have a check that we're approving
Correct.
today.
For $22,383.68. And I had another check for 16,000 and change that you guys had already approved. And what was the other amount? There was another one that made up the 50. Oh, yeah, the
We
57.
did one early.
Yeah,
And it equals the 70.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. We did one.
We did
early.
an extra check, remember?
Yeah.
We got the signature pages
Yes.
go around.
So big highlights on this. BEPSA, we've already sent that check in, as you know. I did have the transfer of savings already there for the taxes, so we're saving every month on that. Just want to make sure. We did have the Ginny Morse, we had a pole that caught fire over the summer. Riggs Disler sent a bill to us for having to do a ledge truck for that. So you'll see a $2,200 invoice for that. I did include deposits. We have a bunch of deposits that people have given us, and the law in the state of Vermont requires after 12 months, if they're paying well, that we return that money back to them. And we haven't been doing that. We had some that were pretty old. I have some on here. I have a full list I can show you. We have some in 2009, a lot of 2010s, 2014s. So some old ones, totaling $2,565. $2,565 is the total deposits. These deposits are people who have accounts with us still and have, so we can credit their accounts. So that's what will happen this month is these will just be, we're writing a check to ourselves that will apply as a credit to their accounts and say you have your deposit back. Next month, you will have another. Our plan is every month going forward, we will have the deposits that are ready to be put back. So they'll be small numbers.
Yeah.
However, we still have one more list that we have to go through, and those are people who no longer have accounts with us who deserve deposits back. And that's a little trickier because we got to find those
Gotta
people.
find them, yeah.
So that's why I didn't include them in this. I figured these are the easy ones. Let's get them out of the way.
Otherwise, they go to the treasurer.
They have to go to the state. Exactly. So
Why did we keep the money and why do you think they deserve to get it back?
what state requires us to give it back?
It was a deposit.
These are people who have zero balance.
Okay, zero balance.
Zero balance and have
And
moved.
we know that they have zero, we've held, so,
Their account's closed.
yeah, I know, but do we know that the account is zero because,
Any write-offs? Is that what you're concerned about?
well, so where's the deposit being held? Is it in an escrow in another account? Do we know that the deposit paid off the bill or not? So they
If it did pay off the bill, the deposit number would be zero.
got
Yeah, it goes because when you remove it
it,
from,
got it. Okay.
it's not a separate account, but it's a separate accounting
Yeah,
account.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Just,
Nope, you're good. So there's a list. If anybody wants to see it, feel free. But the total is $2,565. That's on here as part of the regular.
And where would I find it here?
That is Jacksonville Electric is the fourth one down. Refund deposits.
Okay,
I think that is about it for crazy ones. Simple Solutions is a once a year expense now. That $1,200 about halfway down the page. That's the website hosting fee. The last 2 months or last few months we've paid the build costs, 3,000 and 3,000, and this is a 2025 one time. Well, that's the only thing we'll have to pay unless we have to hire them to do some crazy change to the website. It's about halfway down the page. It's 1,200 Simple Solutions. I think everything else is pretty standard.
what is Answer Pro?
So this is the reception 24/7 is our after hours
Answering service.
answering service. Oh, I did have one ad. That's right. I'm glad I wrote it down. I have an ad of $900. This is on yours as well. This is our cost for mailing all of our bills out for this month. Remember how we switched to a mailing service?
Yeah.
It was just to give some perspectives. Postage alone for us is $550. So if we were mailing it, it's $550 plus hours for us to stuff envelopes.
Yeah.
So it's $900, and that included an insert. So we had to pay extra because we had to put an insert for the public comment period. We paid about $150 for the insert. So we'll be expecting around $750 a month. Their postage is set 54 cents instead of 73 cents, which is pretty cool.
But,
But then we pay the 34.
well, I got
35 cents.
4 envelopes and I used to get one.
Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. I
Right, we're
asked and
keeping
I've
the Postage
asked.
service in.
The best way we've had a lot of people ask, and the best way to minimize the amount of envelopes. So what she was saying is, if you have multiple accounts, you get
Yeah.
multiple. You get an envelope for every account.
Sure.
If you sign up for paperless billing or email billing, then you won't have that. But at some point, we might consider making it so multiple meters are on one account. But right now, that's not something we do. It's kind of it's a sore subject for a lot of people.
Okay, no sore subjects here.
All right, so that's that, and then at the same time, payroll is fairly standard and normal. Just remember there is the 3% cost of living adjustment is seen towards the end, so there might be some variances in that. Not sure if she did include it this way or next one. So both those will need a motion and to be signed.
And you have signature
Need the
pages.
signature
Okay.
page, yep.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve the payroll and payrolls?
Make a motion, we approve the both warrants.
Second.
Second the motion.
Okay, Bud, second.
Huh?
All in favor, say aye.
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 And then we have write-offs for some reason, update.
So if you remember correctly, you guys, at the time of the last meeting, we did not have a, list. You've all seen this because you all
Yep.
signed it, but I wanted to just include it in minutes. So you can see. So that, came up as a write-off, and as we looked into it, that was actually a credit that we owed him and not a amount he owed us. So for some reason that was coming up on the list. So I removed that. That's why he was crossed out, and he was crossed out before you guys signed.
It, is that because they have solar or just an oddity?
No, it was an oddity in the NIMRIC reporting. Yeah.
Here's,
The write-off one. It's for some reason it was after this.
okay,
It's like 5 pages.
yeah, okay. I'll find it then. Okay. But we signed it and, okay, it's good. Okay.
Yep, it's all signed, ready to go. No changes, nothing to report. It was a total of $1,786.
Total what?
1786.35. Oh, hang on. Let me make sure that is still calculating right.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I'll write that down. Because I bet this
So
is
the
Excel
update-
calculation.
Update is that we had one that was actually a credit.
Yeah, so the total was actually 1634 came to. And those are all taken care of at this point.
Manager's report.
Yeah, was this on your list? Age receivables.
Oh,
Oh,
page
yeah, just,
receivable, I'm
it's
sorry.
in here.
Yeah, this was cool, I gotta sign that one.
So our total receivables for this, as of right now is, $56,608.25. Trying to think if that's gone down from any payments in the last couple of days. I don't think so. Maybe a little bit, nothing major has gone down from that. Just to show, some changes to this report, you had asked if we can put an asterisk at the beginning so that the names would show. So it wouldn't, it was getting cut off towards the outside. So that has been updated.
So all the asterisks in
Are
front of their name
agreements.
have agreements.
I think I'm missing a page. Yeah, that one right there. Thank you very much. So nothing's crazy. One note to call out is that one of these just paid off their final payments. I forget which one. One of them has paid off their final agreement. So that's really good. So we're making progress. Sawyer's obviously coming down quite a bit.
Yeah.
Total of 20,000 that they owe us now.
Wow.
It was, I believe, when I started,
Around
50, 1,000 or so, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. For those of you who don't
So,
know,
We didn't put them out of business by asking them to
We
pay
did
their
not.
bills.
not yet at least. For those of you who don't know, Sawyer Bentwood filed an application for solar power on their building this month, which I'll give a little bit more update in the manager's report.
Do you think that eventually somewhere they will get this solar and windmill power? So there'd be one billing on it? Don't you have a mixed up mess? There always seemed to be a question about bills. Some of them show, some of the ones that got solar shows a bill of $4,000
When it's not.
when it's not. So do you think eventually somebody will get that worked out? So it'll be,
Hopefully.
I'm gonna bring that up to see what you could
Yeah,
just inquire into it, just to see.
I'll talk about it a little bit at the manager's review. It's the new platform, El Dorado. Solar hasn't switched over to them yet. It will be switching over, it sounds like, by the end of January. I don't know if this billing cycle will actually have it or not. But next billing cycle, everything will be in El Dorado, including solar. Big thing about that is at that point, Steve doesn't know how to do it anymore. So that's coming back in house at that point.
It's been a
It's been a long time.
battle, and there's been a lot of
Right.
people coming through the door.
I will say, I haven't sent a customer to talk to Steve about solar since probably October. I handle them in-house now, that's a big step in the right direction, in my opinion. We used to, any questions for solar, just go to Steve and Steve Farnham. He's the guy from Vepsa that was on the public hearing. He's good. He knows what he's talking about, but he does not know how to talk to people. He's not a great person to send a customer to go talk to. So we're making progress. I'm hoping if everything works out, we should be the solar should be a lot cleaner starting next month. I haven't seen it yet. Is my problem. Barton is going online for this billing cycle. So Barton will be on El Dorado officially this billing cycle. And they had a requirement that they had to be able to do demand readings and they had to be able to do solar readings before they could go online. So I'm kind of letting them do Barton because Barton's way bigger than we are. And I can kind of handle my little 18 solar customers without making them do too much work. But if they get it done and get us online for that, that would be, that would be a bonus. So I think it'll be cleaner coming up. So, one note, as we've mentioned in the past, anyone over 60 days, that's our concern. I've relayed that to Linda. We are working on that. One thing that El Dorado has the capability of is an import, mail merge import of all customers who meet certain criteria. We can merge them into a disconnect notice and mail them all out. That's always been a challenge is, how do you mail 50 disconnect notices in a month? You really can't do it. So customers have slowly learned that they won't get disconnected if they're late by a couple days or by, if you're 60 days late, that's a long time. And we should be concerned. And so now we're working on the mail merge next month. So once that's imported and ready to go, that will help us a lot. One thing we have the ability to do as of this month is do robocalling. So we can call all customers, we can enter criteria and say you need to call a customer on the 16th of the month who haven't paid yet and remind them they have a bill that's due. So that'll be something we'll be starting to do this month, which should help with some of these customers that forget.
How do you forget 4 months in a row?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're working on it. I'm excited about the technologies that are coming that'll help us to do this a little bit more.
I'm looking here at Christian Yopes.
He's the disconnect. I got a call from him today. So he's a tough one. You know him.
Had him as a student.
Yeah. So he comes up with money every time we tell him he needs to come up with money. He just doesn't come up with all of it. And that's
But he's been on that list for years and years.
Yep.
As you say, when he gets right down after you approach him and gone through your channels, he'll find some money.
He'll find something. But he makes you go through the channels every time.
Every time. Yep.
So he did get a disconnect notice. We've given him a second notice, and he called today and said that Sevka is going to be paying it and that they'll be in touch, is what I've been told. So that's where we're at right now. Obviously, if Sevka does not we'll reach out to Sevka tomorrow and ask about it. If Sevka hasn't heard anything or something's going on with that, we'll start actually doing disconnect with that. Another one that's probably on a path to disconnect is Angel Rhodes. She's up there in the thousands at this point. And she had an agreement that she broke at this point. So let's see. She's this 019613 on the first page. Very first page. She owes currently $749 on that one. So she's another one that likely is on a disconnect list unless we hear from her coming up here. So we kind of continue to do our work on that. As I said, it's tough to get through the whole list, and a lot of these customers you'll reach out to them and then they pay, and that's the end of it. So oftentimes it's just a phone call, and we can do that through robocalling.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll take care of some of these. But the big part of El Dorado is to try to streamline some of that.
Yeah.
To make it a little easier, and that's what we're working on.
Well, it looks like it's getting better.
It is getting better.
What does that all do to Sawyer?
A big chunk of it is, that's for sure. As I said, my goal is to get it down to 30,000. You'll never get it to zero. We're at 56,000. If Sawyer pays off their 20,000, then yeah, we're pretty close to where
Yeah.
our goal would be.
What do with your place across from the old winery? I heard that's up
My
for
house?
sale.
Yeah, the winery is for sale.
I heard that.
It's I don't know if it's gonna sell. It's $680,000. I think is what they have it listed for.
Who owns it now? The lady?
Yeah, she lives in Florida.
Yeah.
And I guess she's struggling to maintain the Airbnb VRBO rental that she has from Florida. So she's, I guess, selling it for that. But she's up to date on her account. So
Yeah.
it's always like a good example. We had Austin Crispin up on what's that road? Parsons Road. He owns the campground. We call it the campground.
Okay. Yeah.
Who used to own that house?
Like Farrington.
Oh, yeah.
You know what house we're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he always paid his bill on time, and the month he went under contract, he missed the payment. And I kind of questioned that, but you can't put a lien on a property because of one missed payment. He moved. He said, he'll give me his address, and he gave me his address, but I haven't received a payment from him. So now he owes 2 months, about $500 to us, but he's already sold the property. He's gone. I don't see it.
Gone too.
Property sold. So I don't know if we're ever going to get that, but it's tough. That was a tough one because even before it sold, I was like, I feel like I should put a lien, but I can't really do it. But we do the best we can, I guess. That's what it comes down to. All right. Manager's report. So manager's report, rate case. A few of you went to the rates public hearing that we had. It went well, nothing crazily unexpected. There's nothing in the packet for anything manager's report except for the draft budget. It wasn't super unexpected. There were more people than I expected who called in. I was expecting maybe 1 or 2, and there were probably 5 or 6, I think. The comments that we received were there was one comment that was received about how our rates are going up, but the people who have solar aren't getting paid more for what they produce and sell to us. Obviously, that's not controlled by us. That's the state decides what all those rates are. There was one comment that we didn't notify the customers properly. Well, I guess that we didn't notify the customer, which we did multiple times. And this particular customer, I specifically notified. So that was corrected, and it was called out by the state that we did it. So it was good. It was corrected and it was taken care of. That was pretty much it. Was there anything else that you?
No.
Those were the two big ones that stood out to me.
Yeah.
There was one person who had asked if they had a choice, if they could choose to do Jacksonville Electric or some other company, and the state told them no, not in the state of Vermont. No, you can't do
this
that.
is not California.
So that that, and then they asked about consolidating to save resources, and the state said that this isn't the platform for that. But again, if I knew who that was, I don't know who it was. If I knew who it was, I would have reached out to them and explained a little bit more, but their name was not clear who it was. So if anybody reaches out to me, I'm happy to go through what I went with you guys, explaining what our rates are better. And most customers see that than if we went to Green Mountain Power. So auditor update when you're ready. So auditor, as I said last meeting, we have one one proposal that came in. It was KBS, and that is what wound up coming in by Friday that week. They are happy that we're working with them again. Unfortunately, it is going to cost us money to do that. So we just be aware of it. we need to do it by law. We're required, and it's going to cost us money.
Yeah.
I will say they do seem good. They've already reached out to us and set dates this year. Last year there was some fluctuation because they had to do a year before that before they could start 2023. This year they've already told me the dates they're going to be in the office and doing the work and everything. They've already had that planned out. So I feel like it should be a little cleaner this year. I hope better be, even though it is going to cost us money. So
Well,
that's
see our old bookkeeper up washing dishes today,
who's that?
Mrs. Hamilton.
Oh yeah. Was she at the
meal site?
meals? Yeah. Yeah. She's around. She pops in every once in a while when I see her. So the El Dorado update, the platform's been great. We've had a lot of people who are really happy with the online portal that they can use to make payments. We have quite a few payments that have come in online. Probably about $35,000 has been paid online out of the 78,000, so it's about half. So that's pretty good. And that obviously there is a fee. A lot of people aren't happy about the fee, but the people who wanted the online platform seem happy that there's an online platform. For a lot of people, for me, for example, my banking's all in Bennington. The fee for me to go to the ATM and withdraw the cash or pay the fee, I just pay the fee. Might as well do that. I don't write checks. I don't write checks. It is what it is. I think it's probably a generational thing. A lot of people just say that's the cost of doing business. That's what it is. So that's that. It's been very good, as I said, that they're currently working on demand and solar readings. So we have 4 demand meters in our at Jacksonville Electric's grid. We have the school, we have the Jacksonville sewer plant, and then the 2 Sawyer Bentwoods. Those are our 4 accounts. They have demand readings. The way the demand readings work is they're at any instantaneous point of time, what was the highest usage in a plant or on their grid. And essentially you record that every month, you keep track of it. And in the state of Vermont, you're allowed to either bill whatever that highest amount was for that particular month, or 60% of the highest of the 12 months. So you look through and you say, oh, which one was the highest? Oh, it was this 60%. Is that 60% of the highest higher than that demand for this month? So we have to calculate that manually right now. NIMRIC calculated it for us automatically. We're 60%. Other places are different. They call them ratchets. They're different numbers. And you essentially, if you have a demand meter, you have to pay your usage of electricity plus your demand ratchet, whatever it comes out to. What that is you're essentially paying for the demand load. These are high users, and we have to build our grid for their highest amount of usage. And so that gives us the ability to bill for that. In our case, we only have 4 customers. In Barton's case, they have 200 customers that are demand meters. So for them to calculate it is very difficult. So that was one of their requirements before they went online. They had to figure out the demand ratchet. So Barton coming online, they're figuring out the demand ratchet right now. I've been calculating it for 2 months. Yeah, it's not hard. I plug it in and it's good. It works. And then the other thing is the solar. Obviously, depending on the year a solar contract was signed, there's different calculations for everything. And so those have been plugged in for Barton, and in theory, that should be easy for us to be able to plug. As I mentioned earlier, Sawyer Bentwood has filed a solar application for 150,000 kilowatt system, which is very large.
How big?
150,000 kilowatt. Our grid at peak use is 800,000 kilowatts. So to give some perspective, it's more than 10% of our grid at peak usage, and at non-peak, it potentially could be 100% of our grid. So they would have enough solar to supply every single customer in Jacksonville with solar power.
Can you let the listers know this, please?
I will.
Thank you.
They might not own it though, so it may not
That
affect
affects
their.
our other solar units.
Well, it affects a lot of things. We're still learning.
Then the other ones we got will be over what we need.
Right. So there's a couple things that we need to look into. Actually, we don't need to look into it. They need to provide us proof that they've looked into it. The first is there's a potential that they'll produce more than we're using at any given time, which means our grid, the whole Jacksonville grid, will run backward. So that means there needs to be something back towards Green Mountain Power. Well, they'll buy it, but we need to be calculating it. We need to make sure the meter runs backward at the metering point. The other thing is if power goes out and they're producing, that means we could be backfeeding our entire grid back to them. So they will need to put a shutoff switch that when power goes out at the metering point, it also disconnects at their plant. Those two things alone are like $40,000. Don't write that down, but like $40,000 worth of equipment that Sawyer will be responsible for purchasing. So they're and that coupled with they will need to hire engineers to see what this is going to do to the grid.
What it Sawyer's will be feeding back into the village, right?
They'll be feeding back into the village. Yep. So it has the potential to be really good. But there's obviously a lot of concerns. There's a lot of upfront costs that I'm not convinced the solar company has made Sawyer Bentwood aware of. I don't know the agreement as to whether it's not something we're ever really privy to, but there's two ways it could be. You could either have the solar company could own all the solar panels and they're the ones who make all the money on it, and Sawyer just pays them, or they get paid. Sawyer gets paid a leasing fee. Or for using their roof essentially, or Sawyer could own the whole thing, and depending on who owns it, that's who pays the upfront costs. We've pulled in Green Mountain Power already. This is way beyond Rod's knowledge of what is needed, even from a meter perspective. But I wasn't too thrilled about. It was submitted that we agreed to their design already, which is not true. We did not agree to their design. We said we need to research it a little bit further. So the state even flagged that and said, "Do you really agree?" And we were like, "No, we really don't." So we did submit a letter yesterday to the state saying, "No, we do not agree. This needs to be researched." We've already reached out to Green Mountain Power to begin that research process and to pull a price together of what the engineering costs alone would be. So that just be aware. I'm a little nervous. Sawyer's going to feel like we're fighting against them on this. I'm not trying to, but we need to protect ourselves first. And there's a lot that could be, if we did respond and say, yes, we agree to all of it, we're on the hook for anything that Green Mountain comes back and says, no, you did it wrong. It'd be on us. So we don't want that. So it was a little bit of a surprise. I got a call on New Year's Eve that this application was going to be submitted. And I wasn't working on New Year's Eve, but I got a call and I saw who it was and I answered and found out that's what it was. And so that was a little different. Just be aware of that. I bring that up in El Dorado because that will make a difference in the El Dorado setup for solar. That's a pretty big account. That's probably our sample account for what could be in our system. And now solar is obviously going to make it even more. This could be in our system. But one thing I'm also looking at, for those of you who don't know, we have a meter down at Great River Hydro at the dam. There's a meter that is currently fed off of the National Grid feeder line. So National Grid essentially has an agreement with Great River Hydro to buy all the power from them. So it goes straight to Massachusetts. Well, at the same time, there's already power lines there. So essentially they took the power line, dropped it down and made a feed to a meter that's down at the bottom of the dam. That meter is in our territory. Green Mountain Power reads it. They've done it for
They've done
50 years, for years and years and years. This has been done. Technically, we have the right to read that meter and bill for the energy and pay the wheeling fee. That's not something we've ever really been interested in because a meter reader would have to walk to the bottom of the hill and read the meter manually. And by the time that's all done, it's probably not worth it.
Yeah.
However, with us going to smart meters, we don't need to go to the bottom of the hill anymore. So Rod and I are beginning the conversation of looking into what that might take together, because that is another industrial account that we technically could be billing demand meters on. And
Green Mountain for years.
yeah, and there's no real reason it needs to be on Green Mountain Power. But I'm not sure what it takes to get that transferred over to us, or if we can, but it technically is in our jurisdiction and we should look into it potentially as a source of income.
So with the solar coming in.
Yeah.
Is that generally good for us?
It costs us more money than if we were to just buy power.
It does.
It does cost us
Yeah.
more. Because
Because we have to pay a different rate.
yeah, we have to pay 13 cents a kilowatt hour. We buy power for about 7 cents a kilowatt hour
Yeah.
when we're buying it from ISO New England. And we own generator plants. So the problem is we own those generator plants whether we produce all our power down here or not.
Mhm.
So in theory, you know, I always say, well, let's just put a huge array up and we'll power, Jacksonville Electric here at 13 cents a kilowatt hour and not pay anything. Well, you still have to pay Velco for transmission. You still have to, no matter what, you have to pay some of those bills.
Yeah.
So there's a balance, a delicate balance that we have to play that says this is how many customers have solar and this is how many, because we can never deny a customer solar.
Right.
So like if we ever put a grid in, you kind of have to build it. Like they told me, Bepsa told me if we were to build a grid that Jacksonville Electric owns, we'd want to do it, about 70% of usage, so that there's still 25% fluff in case somebody comes in and wants to put a solar in or wind array or something. There's still room for them to do that. So the problem, in my opinion, a big problem is that the design of this is way too big for solar Bentwood. I get why they're doing it, but it's too big for what we
And
can.
they're putting this all on their roof?
That's what I've been told.
I didn't realize they had that much room.
They have a big roof. They have a pretty big roof, but
That's a lot.
it's probably,
I've got a vision of it filling up that field.
well, when we were looking at it, we were talking about the field, and I was told 6 ground mounts. If we put 6 ground mounts in that field, we could feed the whole grid, our whole grid.
Really?
So it doesn't take as much as, they have 480 kilowatt solar panels now. That's a lot for a 2x4
Yeah.
panel. It's double the size of mine.
How do cloudy days affect your solar?
Oh, you can watch them. If you ever go into one of the control rooms, the Green Mountain Power control rooms, or ISO New England would be even more fun to watch. You can tell when a cloud moves across the sky because all the power that's out there being produced, all of a sudden a cloud goes over and they all just drop down.
Well, who makes that power up?
So then what happens, ISO New England, when they're looking at their grid and they're going, this is their demand, this is how much, they'll watch the weather and see when the clouds move in, and they'll preemptively call Highgate, for example, and say, hey, I need you to turn on your water generator.
Yeah.
So hydro generators, so that we can make up for the loss. And because we own hydro, we've made a lot of money on that this past summer.
Mhm.
Because we've been particularly Swanton area, their generators are kind of the go-to. The Project 10 generator is kind of the go-to for ISO New England, and we're paying premium. They're paying premium rate to send it to New York City, for example, when we own it. So it costs us almost nothing. It was, a matter of fact, a lot of times we make money on it. So towards the end of last year, we were making a lot of money off of the hydro.
The we you're
we-
talking about now is Vespa.
No, we as Jacksonville Electric own part of Project 10.
Oh, I see.
Because we paid to build it.
Yeah.
So that's part of what we own assets in 12 facilities. Yeah. As Jacksonville Electric. And we also own Velco, part of Velco. So those are assets that we not only get power from, on paper, we get power really, is not actually physically coming from there to here. We get it on paper that says we're getting power from them. And at the same time, we're also, as owners, as we sell it to other people, we make money off of it.
Yeah.
And like Velco, for example, we bought into Velco when Velco first started. So we have higher ownership share percentage wise to users than like Green Mountain Power. Because Green Mountain Power started way after we did.
Yeah.
So we're actually one of the highest paid out by Velco right now when they do dividend shares. Which is pretty, Breedsboro was very high and we were really high. And now obviously they're small in the grand scheme of things, but as a percentage of customers, we get a lot more.
Yeah.
It's an interesting kind of play on how it all works out. I do have the budget. As I said, the budget, I thought I was going to be so smart and plug in all the numbers through the end of 2024 in this budget. This should be in your packets. And so I plugged everything in and it put me at a budget deficit of $90,000 when I did it. Just to refresh everybody's memory, I was 1,200 plus before I made that edit. I think the biggest things that changed are the income. The projected income that I had was higher for 2024 than what was realized. But that is, I believe, because, and this is something I have to verify over the next month, I believe that's because we have a receivables line that is still making money. As we pointed out, we billed for $109,000, but we haven't received that yet. We've only received 20,000 of it, or I'm sorry, 50,000 of it. So that's, I believe those numbers are going to go up, and these are not fully finalized yet. I'm going to keep an eye on that. We don't need a finalized budget. There's nothing that says we have to finalize it. But what I'd like to do is plug these. There's nothing really that can be cut in this budget. There might be some things that we can maybe, make them a little smaller. Purchase power, all these top ones on the first page. Purchase power, Project 10 expense, renewable energy. Those are fixed costs. Those are costs that are going to be what they're going to be. Line supplies, metering expense. They're kind of fixed cost as well. Maintenance of structures and equipment, we can cut that, but we're probably going to spend it either way. That's buying transformers and things like that. We might be able to bring that down to 5,000, but again, it's kind of a fixed cost. Whatever we have to spend on that, we have to spend on it. Maintenance of lines, I put in 35,000. That has some potential to go down, but as you see, we've already spent 33,000 for this year. So I don't picture us going down with that unless you guys give me the directive you want us to spend less on that.
Let's refresh my memory here. Fiscal years.
January to December.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just finished our fiscal year.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason that actually, I question that whether we should switch to a May, like a June, like what you would see in a school or the towns. From our audit perspective and our annual meeting perspective, it actually makes sense because we can close our year, do our audit, and then do our presentation in June. If we change that, what I'm seeing from the other villages is they run fiscal year, but their annual meetings are in March because that's when they have their town meeting. And so what they're up against, they just finished the fiscal year and now they have to get the audit done right now, right in the middle of tax season, so they can have it done for March. And they're not ready. Like they're really in tough spots to get their audits done. So I was questioning whether we should change it, and then I heard those stories and went, oh, maybe we shouldn't. We're in a good position now. It gives us a little time to think about
You've got 6 months between
it. Exactly.
close of business and your annual meeting.
Right. Tree trimming expense, 50,000. We'll talk about the RFP later on. That 17,000 is an understatement. We'll talk about that. It's being accounted in other areas, but it's a lot of it is going into this maintenance of lines area. Essentially, when we bill for our guys' hours, they can go into 2 buckets. I'm going to make it 3 buckets, but right now, as of 2024, it was 2 buckets. It was either line extensions or maintenance of lines.
Right.
Well, tree trimming is a big part of what they do. They go and cut a tree down. That's a tree trimming.
Yeah.
And that currently isn't being billed into
Yeah.
tree trimming.
Okay.
So there's a potential maintenance of lines could go down and tree trimming would be accounted for correctly. It's still not going to make up the 90,000 that I'm talking about at the end. I don't think it's going to make a difference in the end. Green Mountain Power maintenance of lines. I'd like to get it less than 30. I don't trust going less than 30. As you can see, 72,000 we spent last year, 25,000 of it was that accident right down there. So I anticipate, I think I'll get pretty close to that 30,000 this year. As you know, the beginning when I first started, we didn't have a good routine going. But now we're getting in a pretty good routine of figuring out how to handle outages and things like that. And I think that number will come down. I think that 30,000 is in pretty good shape. Rigs maintenance alliance, that's just drilling holes, for poles and things like that. That's a pretty low number. Meter reading labor, that's, it is what it is. At this point, labor for accounting and lab, labor, accounting, collecting and labor. So this is Mary Lee and Linda's labor cost, was budgeted for 50,000. Seems higher than I was expecting. That might be able to come down actually, now that I'm looking at it, because this number, essentially we did a 3% increase. That 3% is an increase based off of the budget for last year, which was 43. We only spent 36,000 of it.
Yeah.
So I could probably bring that down a little bit. Maybe into the 40s.
Before you do that, why did you only spend 36?
That's a good question. I anticipate it was the hours were not filled, because there definitely are many weeks the hours are not filled. I'll take a look at that though and just make sure that that's what it is before we do too much. And as I mentioned last meeting, I don't know what the future looks like for this. I don't anticipate that we will need to backfill any positions that might be vacant, at least at this time. So there's a potential, there's a savings there if something does change. Utilities about the same. Telephone expense. I mean, all most of these I'm just gonna.
Sales and expense was in 2023 and 24 so high, and then 20. Oh, that was budgeted. So 23 actuals was 3,500 for sales, supplies and expenses. And then it went down to 281. We should
I don't-
stuff around and.
I need to figure out what that is, because I don't.
Where did
We don't
actually-
use that at all this year. So I
I mean, it's just
because this is under customer operations supplies and expenses. We have like office supplies as a separate line item that we'll get to a little further. So that I think is my hunch is that's like gloves for Richard kind of thing. But I'll look into that a little
I
more.
see. Different supplies.
Yeah, it's customer facing supplies.
Got it.
you know, if we had to get new tabs for meters and things like that,
Okay.
that might be included in that.
I see.
Utilities, I'm not sure if what to expect with that. Utilities is sewer, obviously sewer, our electric bill. It does not include telephone expense or internet expense. It's everything but that, and oil. So I did increase that a little bit just because it does seem like everything's going up a little bit every year on that. Telephone expense, I'm keeping. We're going to have to increase that actually. I think looking at that. So that'll be increased. And internet expense, I think will be fine at that 13.5. Website expense should just be the 1,500 that we're paying out of this packet that we just voted on this meeting. That should be the only website expense we have for the year. Admin salaries, that's essentially just my salary. It's my salary plus the 3% cost of living adjustment. And trustee auditor pay, that unless you guys see any, if you want to do any changes there, that should stay the same. Office supply expenses. This one's down. The reason this is down is because we no longer have postage that we're paying internally. So that I did decrease by quite a bit. It is made up for in the outside services employed line. We have an increase of 10,000. It was 10,000 for this year. We had it originally at 8,000. That's again one of those line items. We just don't know what it's going to look like for a year because it's such a new process. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on that.
That's the $900 bill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you don't know what that's.
I mean, in theory, it's about 750 every month.
Yeah, it looks like that'll cover it.
Right. So that's included there. We do have a lot of envelopes left over, so I really don't anticipate having to buy postage other than maybe stamps. If we have to buy some stamps here or there, but other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape from that perspective. Software, we do have a computer purchase. Just as a heads up, we have a computer that hasn't had a warranty on it. I think they said 2014 was the last time. So over 10 years, it hasn't had a warranty for over 10 years. It needs to be replaced. And essentially Microsoft has said they're no longer going to service the computer. So it's not going to cost $6,000, but they did include it there. That's something we're going to need in the software area. Credit card fees is just blank. Uniforms, as I said, $2,000. This is just covering, if somebody comes to me and says their steel toe boots are broken and need to be replaced, or we need to buy shirts for Richard or something like that. The way I kind of calculated it was $500 per person for the staff that's out and about. And hopefully we won't need all that, but just in case. One thing you should know is OSHA is changing the hard hat design. It is already changed. It's implemented in certain industries already. Has a chin strap. It looks a lot like kind of like a bicycle helmet. Eventually, they're going to make us change those out, but I don't think it'll be this year. But that is just something to be aware of. Outside audit, as I said, $18,000 is included in that. So that should cover us there. GIS and mapping. This might be a little low. One of the things that we have coming is there's going to be some. We have our maps. Our maps are almost good, but they're not quite. We have a pole that's here and a line that's here. We really need to make sure that pole's on the line, or else when we get our new AMI, our new meters, they're going to not understand what's going on and where things are located. The goal at the end of the day is that when an outage comes in, we should be able to see it on our map, our GIS map. This is where our outage is, which means all these people are out of power.
And
So
where's the GIS map?
the GIS map is
Just
it's a
on-
cloud-based GIS map. I can show you a picture when we get into the RFP for tree trimming. There's a poll from it. So essentially, it's really imperative that we get that updated. There's an estimate from VEPSA for a company to come in and do that. Empower is the company that does our GIS. It's $30,000. We can pay that over time. I told them I need at least 5 years, just because it is what it is. That's something that likely will happen during 2025 cycle. They'll come in and do that work for us. VEPSA management services, that actually will probably go down with Steve no longer entering our readings for us. We'll be entering those internally, but I'm going to keep that the same because we'll probably employ them for some other service. Through that, property insurance, our property insurance goes up all the time, and I'm really not sure. I'm sure you've seen it in Nimerick. The way Leagues of Cities and Towns does it is you pay a fee per quarter. And then they come back and do an audit of what they think you should have paid. And if it doesn't match what you actually paid, they send you a bill for the difference. And it seems like every month it's not what what they said they thought it was going to be. So I'm going to do a little digging on that. I think most of you were here. It was before me where they came in and did look at our facility. And said some things that need to be updated. I may ask if they can come do that again, and maybe that'll bring down our property expense. But I mean, that's just this building. They're not paying property. I mean, we tried to make an insurance claim on our poles, and they told us no. So I'm not sure why 17,000 for just this building. That seems pretty high.
Is
Geez, I
personal
guess so.
property involved?
It could be. Yeah, it could be. I mean, honestly, our auto is probably included in that too, but even that, it still seems very high.
Yeah.
Who's the agency?
It's Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. Yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't.
With
We could look other places. I'm gonna look into that. I noticed that the bill came last week, and I went, that just seems really. I'm gonna do some digging and see what's going on with it. FICA Medicaid, that is, I'm gonna have Mary Lee break this out because right now retirement goes into FICA Medi, and so that's why that number is so high at the 21,000. But that's not really an accurate description of what that should be. It should be broken out as both retirement as a line item, as well as property, or I'm sorry, as well as FICA Medi broken out. So I'm gonna work on that and then figure out a total because retirement I think is a little low at that 6,000. So that's just something I need to look into. Child care tax, as you know, this is mandated by the state starting this past June. So we're still working on what that number looks like. Health and dental benefit, that's for me and for Linda. That did have an 11% increase, which is low compared to what a lot of people are seeing. But that's built in here. Property taxes, I went in at 52. We paid 51.7 last year. I'm a little nervous that might be more like 55 or 60 even. But right now I'm just keeping it that way. Unless you guys want me to do something different.
Seems unrealistic.
Do you want me to put it at
It's just
60? It's going to go up. We already know it's going to go up. What do you know what you're? I forget. I have an expert in the room on this.
So well, we've heard
The numbers are all-
9% increase in the state, and then I don't have a clue as to what your spending is anticipated
Make
to
it
be.
up as we go.
Yeah, I know. So what was our rate last year for municipality?
Oh geez.
I mean, did we actually break past $1? Because back in the day, it was like 63 cents.
I know it was the first time we went up as a municipality in
A long time.
like 5 years. I think it was. I can look into that a little bit more, but the 5.9 might be a good place to at least start. Maybe make it 6.9 or something, and that way we're
Yeah,
at least budgeting for something
right,
there.
right.
Fuel tax. This is just a tax we pay to the federal government. I'm not sure why it's called the fuel tax, but essentially any power supply company has to pay this tax to the federal government. We pay that monthly. Miscellaneous general expense. I have no idea what's included in that. I can look. I can transportation expense. That's usually my reimbursements going there. As I said, or as you can see, I did 2,500 for reimbursements. $200 for me to go to VEPS every month. I will say that there was a conference I really wanted to go to this year that I did not go to. It was New England Public Power Conference. It was strongly suggested that I go to it. I decided to save money. We should not do that. I would like to this year. It's just meeting people in the industry is a big part of it. We haven't had a representative from Jacksonville Electric since Pam. Pam got recognized for our 100th anniversary. I think she was there or somebody was there. I'm not sure who. But just as a heads up on
I would
that.
encourage you to go.
They kill me when I see the cost. This is really
I
what it
understand,
comes down
but
to.
there'll be some benefit to us.
Yeah. So just a heads up, I did include a little bit there for that. Truck fuel, $2,000. We had a lot of line extensions this year. It's hard to know. Obviously, we bill out those line extensions either way. So whatever. And one thing you'll see is this line extension income. I put in a 0 for the budget because they net out in the end anyway, because anything coming in is going out. So
Yeah.
I put in that as a 0. But some line items like fuel may benefit from them at the end of the day. Truck service and parts. I put 4,500. Man, I hope the red truck makes it another year. If it doesn't, we might be blowing that budget out of the water. The JEC bucket truck expense is 21,000. We do have to do the testing every year. The dielectric testing should be about $3,000, I think. So that's in there, as well as our payments every month that we make. I did have, we're going to have the person who serviced the old truck, did kind of all the fuel change outs and everything once a year.
Yeah.
Come and do it on this truck as well.
Yeah.
He's already been talked to, so he's going to come and do that for us. We do it once a year, and that's all. We don't drive it enough to make it something we really have to do much. Maintenance of the plant. So this year we had a pretty big project doing the ramp, or I'm sorry, the change out in there. Right. So we don't have that. So I did 5,000. We do need to start thinking about some work in here from windows and windows in particular. I can sit in my desk and feel the breeze coming through. But that's we don't have to do it this year, but it's something we should think about at some
Why
point.
don't we get some of that energy audit money back here?
Well,
So
it was funny because they actually have $20,000 for businesses planned, and it's not an advertised thing. They just sent this to me, and they asked for a list of businesses in Whitingham that would be eligible for $20,000. And I was thinking I'm going to apply for us,
Sure.
and just see what comes of it.
Spot out there needs windows on the backside.
Yeah.
It's just thin no glass there.
I'm honest. I don't know. We might be better off just putting insulation over it and just not having windows.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we need them,
We don't need light, yeah.
right? I
There's
mean,
no light comes in that window. Anyway.
Yeah, so just
but it is one of those.
Backs up against the hill.
spray it.
We one thing that isn't in here that's been talked about a lot is a well. I think you guys know we get all our water from across the street. We had an issue this month where the water, we had no pressure whatsoever here. I reached out to them and asked if they had pressure. Next thing I know, they emailed me and said everything's taken care of. There was a pump that needed to be replaced, and they did it. And it just kind of got the hairs on my neck a little weird. Like I would have a plumber come in and do it, and they're just doing it themselves. And who knows? I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. Obviously it works. It's taken care of. I brought it up to Bud. It's just kind of, it's a weird situation. And then a couple days later, I think Kenny, you were there. Kevin came into the gas station when I was there and said that he's thinking that the $40 a month isn't enough money, and that, which at the grand scheme of things, it's about $500 a year. Probably isn't. But at the same time, how much do we want to go down this path? And I told him that's nothing to do with me. You have to talk to my board. I'll tell you when my board meetings are, and you can come talk to him. Obviously he's not here, but I think we're kind of treading on water a little bit here, with the well situation. I did reach out to, you had asked me to reach out to Derek and see about setting something up in here. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. I think they were pretty busy over the holidays and stuff. I'll reach back out to him again. The gas station has expressed an interest in sharing a hole for a well where we each own our own pumps and each own our own lines. So split the cost of drilling the well down, and that's it. That's how Lind has told me usually share wells work. You're responsible for your line, they're responsible for your, and you're both responsible if it runs dry. They've expressed interest in it. I reached out to Brad because it will take some engineering, and I was hoping to get an estimate from him of just the engineering cost. He told me that he doesn't do commercial, which I didn't know. He actually didn't know that. He had to look it up. But he did give me a name of Trinity, which a lot of people have worked with in town, to come and give us an estimate. So they're out of North Adams. So I'm waiting on a call from them on that. Obviously, that's not included in this. We don't have to do it, but it is something I feel like it's our due diligence just to think about. If we ever do have to, I mean, when I talked to Lind about drilling this well, or, having anything done, he said the problem is that well was put in before 112 was 112. If we ever have to dig up Route 112 to replace the line that goes across the street for power reasons or plumbing reasons, it's going to cost us the cost of a well just to do that.
Yeah.
So he said you really should think about just getting it on this side of the road
How
somewhere.
far can you build near a brook?
You can't. Lind already said that you're too close to the road and we're too close to the brook. And he said you're going to have to get a variance for probably both. And he said you're probably going to have to get a variance because you're probably going to have to put it in the parking lot. So you're not allowed to bury them, but he said you're probably going to have to bury it. And then he said you're probably going to have to talk about paving to make it so the manhole stays secure. So it might cost us way more than we want to think about, and just it's not worth the conversation. But I think it's worth us to know what that's going to cost in the back of our head. And if we can split it with the gas station, that might not be a bad bad deal. That's just something to be aware of as something that might be coming. That's my budget. You do not have to approve it tonight. It's not. I'd like to have an approved, as I said, I'd like to plug in these numbers, just so that we have them. Just so that we can work towards something. But I think it'd be good if you guys can take this back. I have a few things I have to look at. This is what I was hoping to do the last couple of months, and we really haven't had time. So I think this was a good, productive session for that. But I do think that by June, I mean, obviously by June, we'd like to publish our budget with our annual report.
I think when we do our annual report this year.
Yep.
Might be good to let people know why our expenses are as high as they are. The $24,000 accident kind of sticks in my craw.
There's
But
definitely an
there,
area.
there ought to be some explanation as to why.
One thing that the town of Whitingham does in their annual report, actually, the Roboms brought it up, and I think it's a really valuable thing is top line items, like top expenses for the year. What cost us a lot this year?
Yeah.
The truck would obviously be one. It was an unexpected expense. A car accident is another unexpected expense. Hiring me was I mean, it was expected, but we didn't know what that was gonna cost. Those are things that are worth calling out, that those
Yeah.
are, you know, they're uncontrollables, really.
And our unpaid bills.
and our unpaid bills. I think that, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that is a well worth,
Yeah.
worthwhile thing to do.
Oh,
To get roll call.
yeah.
So we'll come back to that next month if you guys are okay with that. I don't think we need
Yeah.
to take any action on it.
Good stuff, Jim.
Outages. There's 2 outages over the last 2 months, really, but I consider it kind of one outage that's happened. We had a pole break, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, which was down on Holbrook Road. That pole has been stabilized by our guys. They've actually told me that they'd like to just leave it the way it is. They stabilized it, they put braces on either side. There was some talk about replacing it in the spring. The hope is eventually that there's going to be a connection between Upper Holbrook and Lower Holbrook, and that we don't have a cross country leg. But it's just not there yet. The thought is that it's pretty stable. It's in a cross country area. Nobody's hitting it. Nobody's near it. The cost for a new pole, you might as well just leave it until it breaks again. And I'm okay with that. One other thing that you should be aware of, as I mentioned, there's certain areas that are cross country, in Whitingham in particular, that we've been looking at. One of the legs is trying to get rid of from Stimson Hill to the sewer plant. There's a completely cross country line in there. One thing that our guys are working on that right now. They're bringing 3-phase there's already 3-phase at Sawyer Bentwood, and there's already 3-phase at the firehouse, not the firehouse in Whitingham, the new firehouse. So it's about 3 or 4 spans that if we connect those 2, we can remove half that line that goes out through the cross country. So they're working on that currently. They worked on it today, pulling the line. So if you get any questions, if you get a chance to go out there, it looks really good. New poles. We set 1 new pole, put new cross arms up there. The estimated cost of doing that was about $5,000. And I think that's, in my opinion, that's a well worthwhile cost. To spend $5,000 for 1 cross country call is about $75,000 to replace a pole. So
Yeah.
What's it gonna cost go down the road?
so down the road is going to be a little bit more expensive.
Wood.
It's a lot of woods. We're gonna have to do a lot of trimming there.
Green Mountains, cross country, they're going right underground right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just one shot from the,
Right.
from the historical building down to sewer plant, that's it.
Right. But
Just connect both ends. But
that would cost us probably.
it shouldn't ever be any maintenance ever.
Right. The problem that we're running into with that is, I mean, Green Mountain Power got a grant for that,
Oh,
from the federal government to pay for it.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
I think I mentioned this maybe at the last meeting. I mentioned to a few of you. VEPSA had asked about hiring a grant writer as a full-time staff person. And I jumped on that because I don't have a whole lot of time to write grants. Never mind follow up on them. And it was eventually voted down by the board of directors, the other utilities. And I kind of said, why? Why wouldn't you want a grant writer? And the problem is a lot of these they're part of their towns. And their towns have grant writers that are full-time on staff doing it.
Yeah.
We're one of the few. We're one of 3 villages that don't work as part of a town. And so we're in the minority in that case. So we really are a little disadvantaged from that perspective. The grant writers, it's just something we don't have access to that other places
They're
do.
really cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
You look at it on sidewalks and it's like,
Yep.
you got barrel mine, they even apply for the grant.
Right.
You have to survey
Right.
just to apply for it. And then
Exactly.
you get barrel money to get to the end. That was 75,000 just to get the paperwork together.
Exactly.
Of
Yep.
course, back then we could have fixed them 75.
Right.
I know Lynn Felsdom does grant writing, is a grant
Oh,
writer.
really?
So you
Okay.
might wanna
I've reached out to Gretchen Hammerlock.
Yep.
She's in her own little world in Wilmington, but
Yes.
she, she has expressed interest in helping with, particularly with the sidewalks.
Yep.
But that's a really good one for me to possibly reach out to. And it's tough to just find the grants. Johnson was in Johnson is another municipal utility. They just were in they just got a grant given to them to upgrade a lot of their outdated lines by about 20, I think it was 25,000, something like that. It wasn't a crazy amount, but it was, decent. And they got it through, their full-time grant writer at the town found it and applied for it. They didn't even know about it at the electric company until it came in. So some other work we're doing. What we're right now, the project is just making the connection in that first leg. You'll see that we upgraded the poles in the final leg between Brook Street and the sewer plant. There are new poles that Consolidated put in for us, but that does need to be trimmed out and everything. The theory, at least for now, is if those poles are there, if there is an outage on the cross country line, and we're gonna be paying $75,000 for them to do a cross country line repair, I'll have them run the $75,000 cost to run the new line on the new poles that are there and just have it done.
Just a bend in.
So that at least the poles are there, we can do it.
Yeah.
So just as a heads up I don't anticipate an outage like that, but if it's there, it's gonna get done. And then we'll just keep plugging away at it. Our guys, it's pretty cheap for our guys to do the work in the grand scheme of things. And that puts three-phase right on the line, right on the road for almost everywhere in town. Another project we have coming up is the municipal center culvert is going to be replaced this year. It's going out to bid in February. That's about $100,000 project for us to move that pole. It's all paid for by a grant from the town of Whitingham. So that's just, we need to do it. It is something Consolidated needs to drill the pole, drill the anchor. And there's gonna be a lot of coordination of putting temporary services because it's underground that goes to the firehouse in particular. So there's some coordination of getting that all coordinated. So that'll be this spring. And then we just had a line extension payment should be in tomorrow for a $40,000 line extension off Ginny Morse Road to go up on Wayne Course's property. It's an underground three-phase service.
That's the one that was talked about.
It was talked about a while ago, and we spent a lot of money on Rod and I trying to figure out something that works for him. He's convinced the cost of power, a lot of the costs of the supply equipment, transformers, wire, things like that are going to go through the roof of the new tariffs. So he's just saying, I want to do it now.
Yeah.
So that as long as we have, he's required to pay 50% up front. So as long as I have a deposit of $20,000 tomorrow in our account, we'll place the order for the transformer. But that's gonna be a big project when that actually comes through.
But you going underground?
He's going underground, three-phase halfway, and then the rest of the way single phase. He wants to put a barn down there with three-phase in it. So
Which will be his line underground.
no, it'll be ours. It'll be a primary underground. So they'll bury the conduit, and then it becomes our problem after that. Hopefully not our.
How much more does it cost more go underground or cheaper?
They're about the same now. The big difference is that the customer has to pay for the conduit and the digging and the sand to put it in. But it was $2,000 difference between our overground and underground
I keep
costs.
thinking the maintenance is easier on the
Overhead.
Overhead.
It
than
is.
underground.
It is.
Like Rod, he went and he put solar down to his camp because he didn't want to pay the 8,000 to run the.
Right.
But if he paid the 8,000, we run the line down. It's free for him for the rest of his life.
Never have to touch it again.
Yeah,
Exactly.
why didn't he pay the 8,000?
Yep.
Now he's
I
got
know.
to screw with the satellite or the solar panels the rest of his life.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm always amazed that people want to do underground, but unfortunately we don't have a say in it. At the end of the day, if they want to do primary underground, we can't tell them no. We have to allow them to do it. But we do inspect all of all the conduit before it gets buried and
Yeah.
everything. So that has to be done up to our specs. And but there's area. I mean, I know the one that runs in my house. There's an underground that goes up to Orchard Hill Lane, and I know there's water in that conduit line, and that's a primary underground. If it ever had to be upgraded, that's on Jacksonville to replace it, and that's tough. Because that I know in front of my barn, it's so wet that
Yeah,
it would be nice to have to do. Anyway,
So you kind of veered away from outages. You sort of mentioned projects.
yeah, I want to add a project bullet. I should have, but I think
Yeah.
I skipped one.
Do you have anything to report?
I do. I have a quick update.
Oh, okay.
Route 100 car accident. This was a pole that was taken out on Route 100. That pole, it was mentioned in the minutes. They had approved giving us $7,600, and I said no, that I don't accept the $7,600, and kind of waited on that. I called today actually, and the guy said that they actually decided they were going to give us the 8,500 that I had asked for. I don't know the exact number to get it to you. But it's 8,500, so it's an extra 1,000. And really what that was, that included Rod's time and my time of going and managing through this. I didn't think we were going to get it, but we got it, so that's good. That check should be in the mail shortly. $8,500 for that, and that can be closed out. Unfortunately, Route 112, no update.
80 what?
85 and change.
Yeah, it was mentioned in the minutes, right?
Yeah.
That
yes,
amount?
it is. It's 85, 44, 55.
Thank you. So accidents, I was gonna call you, but you're first responder, and I figured, well, he
I
already
knew it.
knows about this.
Maybe.
And I drove by North Rider Pond,
Yes.
and there was an accident, and there was Green Mountain Power was there, and we don't have it in here.
It's because it's not ours.
It isn't.
No. it's
Beyond,
actually-
it's out of our territory. Okay.
I was very nervous of that. that was going to be ours. Just until I knew
What
exactly.
happened?
It was actually called out as on Route 100, right by the metering point. So I was thinking it was the metering point poles. She was just going too fast
Oh.
around the corner and
Oh.
just took out the pole.
At one time, we did own that line
We
from
did.
the meters up this side, the health center on the hill. And a few years ago, we sold that line to Green Mountain.
So
So now we get our power right by Margie's Sugar House.
yeah,
Okay.
Marty's is the last one at
Okay.
Green Mountain.
Okay.
We've had a couple that we had one that was called out. I don't know, it was 5 o'clock in the morning 2 weeks ago for a pole on fire on Route 112 at the Halifax line, which would definitely be us. And so I went out and looked, and it wound up being on the Halifax line on the state line. So that wound up being
Oh.
Green Mountain Power's call. So we were lucky on that.
Jeez Louise.
All right.
We have a RFP.
RFP for tree trimming. So Ron and I have spent some time going through this. I'm not going to go every word, but just kind of some of the big highlights here. So this includes 3 different areas. It's the sewer plant in Whitingham to the end of the line at the top of Reedsboro Hill. That is that's the Route 100 section. And then we have Town Hill Road, the entire Town Hill Road, and the entire Sadaga Lake Road. Those are the 3 roads that are included on this. This would include all primary lines, all secondary lines, which are secondaries from the primary to the house. So primary, secondary, any transformers, clearing out any pad mounts, anything that is owned by the electric company would be included in this. We're just trying to get a bid. I anticipate this is probably going to come back at 100,000. We're expecting that, just so everyone is clear on that. We're expecting this to cost way more than the 50,000. What this is going to do is this is going to give us the ability to go to the state and say, we have a known and measurable amount of what it's going to cost us every year to trim the lines that we're talking about. This is about 6 miles a line in total
Does it mention what you just mentioned in here?
that we're going to go to the state and ask for it.
The distances.
The distances, yeah, it's all right here.
Oh,
Sewer treatment plant from the top of Reedsboro Mountain to the town. Yeah. So there will be a pre-bid meeting, just so you know, on January 29th at 12 p.m. where people can come in and ask us questions. I'll have Rod call into that. If we do need to go out to the on-site, we can do that. If you want to attend, you're welcome to, but you don't need to. I anticipate no one will come, but if they do, they have the opportunity to ask questions then. As I said, this is year A or cycle A. So this is the first of a 7-year cycle. For our tree trimming, we do mention that we need to clear 15 feet in all directions to maintain the right of way. So there's actually a diagram that I created that kind of shows what this looks like, 15 feet around all the poles and lines. There's two parts to this. We have a lot of contractors in town who've expressed interest in doing the work where you have an excavator, and at the end of the excavator, there's a mowing deck, and you can mow. That's only part of the project, though. That's only gives you the base, the ground clearing, and everything. It's only about probably a third of the project that includes that. The rest of it is up high and working around the hot lines, which you need a whole separate criteria to do that. And so I've separated this out into two separate bids. You can either bid for both, or you can bid individually for each section. Trevor Haverluck might do just the upper section because he doesn't have a mowing deck, where Saladino might only do the mowing deck portion. And then there's a place like Greater Heights, who cut down the tree down here, who has the capability of doing both. So we gave them the option that they could submit for one, the other, or both. So just quick notes on this. That we do say that they have to get rid of the brush and anywhere that's not cross country. So most of this is probably cross country. They can just leave it. It has to be a certain distance off the road. But if it's within visibility of the road or someone's house, they have to get rid of it. So mulch it. If it's anything that can be used for firewood, it can be stacked neatly on the customer's property for them to dispose of. Danger trees, essentially any tree that's dead, dying, split, or weak is classified as a danger tree. If they're less than 14 inches in diameter, we're expecting them to take them down if they're within that right of way. If they're greater than 14 inches, then that's a separate project. That would be something we would consider either negotiating with them or bidding separately. But that's a pretty substantial project at 14 inches in diameter. Traffic control is going to be their responsibility to include in the proposal. I do say that we'll give preference to companies that do both, are doing both these parts, because it's going to be easier to coordinate. Ideally, you'd have the upper company come in and do the upper, and then the next day the lower comes through and does it. To coordinate that between two companies is going to be a little bit more work. So it'd be better if they just do it together, but obviously.
I don't know how they're gonna do the upper, like down through the water trough.
So that's, yep.
You gotta go back.
You gotta go back a long way.
There's quite a few places like that.
Yep, exactly. Especially on Route 100. Route 100 is a rough area. This one's probably our most expensive year, to be honest with you, because Route 100 does require traffic control every day.
Yeah.
The side roads are not going to require it, so that's why I'm putting this proposal out as the first year, because I want to see what's the highest cost. From here, we can go down and be a little less every year and hopefully balance out at the end. I do require $1 million in workers' comp insurance. This will be due on I think it's the 13th of January is our next February is our next meeting. I don't know what it is. So this will be due on February 11th. That's clearly a mistake. 2025 at 5 p.m.
And do you want to keep that the work must start? Oh, it must start after January. Okay.
Yeah. So
The word
essentially,
after was when I was missing.
Yeah. So essentially, we're giving them the ability to do this anytime throughout the year.
Yep.
And because I know a lot of them, this is gonna be a sweet winter project, is what they're gonna say.
Yeah.
You're gonna want to do this next winter, or this winter, maybe start and then finish it next winter. So that is just something that you're you should be aware of the summer projects they're going to have all lined up and ready to go, and they make a lot of money off of it. Winter is where they don't make much money, and this is a good project for them. So that is what I submitted for words. Obviously, part one is this lower part. Part two is up top. They are equal. They're proportionally different, but they're actually equal. It's 15 feet in any direction for both. We have a 25-foot right of way, just to give some perspective. We're asking for 15 feet of it, to be clear. We do 15 feet because it's the cycle. If we weren't doing a 7-year cycle, we'd want the full 25, but it costs a lot more to do the full 25. So this is what was recommended to us by a professional tree trimming company that we work with through VEPSA, is to do 15 feet on a 7-year cycle. And Rod thinks that this is a great way of doing it. As well. He was part of those conversations. You've already seen this, but we have the road breakdown of what is included every year on a year A, B, C, D, E, F, and G year, totaling 46 miles of road at the end of the year. And then the last thing, this is actually our GIS system. It's hard to read. I know it's a lot easier on the computer when you zoom in, but it gives the full picture of what we're including here. Anything in blue is our line that we're talking about this year. So this includes all the secondary lines and everything that is included on this. So that's where you're seeing down on Route 100, there's some lines that come off. Those are included on that. Sadaga Lake is the entire road. It doesn't look great on this map, but it is the entire road on there as well. But this at least gives some perspective to the potential proposals of what is included.
Dogga Lake. Again, how far does it go?
It goes to, you see the kind of in the middle, there's a T.
Yes.
That's where Kent Fields connects.
Okay.
That's where it ends. That's where it should go down to. So it won't include Kent Field, but it will include all of Sadaga Lake. And Sadaga Lake's pretty rough. It's one of our worst roads right now. If you haven't taken a trip down there and looked at the power lines, it's definitely one of the concerning areas that we have right now. Route 100 is bad as well, but so that I'm hoping if you guys are okay with it, I'd like to send that out tomorrow. I never printed it. I have a list of companies that I'm going to send it to, but it's obviously open for anyone to apply. But these are companies we've worked with in the past that I have collected that I'm definitely going to send them to. Rod gave me some, and we have some that I've worked with. So Saladino, and these are also companies who expressed interest as well. Saladino, Alpha Arbors, which is in Stamford, Lakeview Landscaping, Matt Beatty, Haverlock has done a lot of work with us. Greater Heights is the one in Bennington that did this tree over here, and D&E was before me, but I guess they've done a lot of work there in Guilford. Have done a lot of work for us. If you have any other people that should be included on this list, I'm more than happy to add them. Obviously it will be on our website. It'll be on VEPSA's website as well. We'll post it probably on Facebook to get the word out there.
Wimbledon.
Wimbledon won't bid on this. I already know that they won't, but we'll send it to them. They won't do volume size like this. They just can't. They can't agree to it. But I did have Wimbledon's.
They probably make more out of small jobs.
They like the small jobs. Yeah, that's exactly it. But how do you spell there? Anyway, I'll find it and get it. Okay, it's not list. If you have any that come up throughout this month, that would be great. And then obviously in our next meeting, we'll discuss this. And maybe we'll have $50,000 and we have 50,000 in our budget already. If it's less than that, then we'll be able to just hire them. If not, we may need to go back to them after our next meeting and say, we have 50,000 now, we're going to apply for more from the state, which obviously is already included in our rate case. So in theory, we could ask for more as part of our rate case already, but we'll kind of see how that goes and what you guys want to do. But this will at least give us some numbers of what
Gotta start somewhere.
we got to start somewhere and got to figure out what we we have and what we need.
Do we need a motion for that?
You can, I don't, as long as you don't disagree with me sending it out, to me, it's a procedural
Yeah.
thing a manager would do anyway. I just wanted to make you aware. I like to make you aware of the RFPs.
Yeah.
So that if somebody comes up to you and says, what the heck,
Right.
you at least have some history as to where it's coming from.
Okay.
Opening the bids will be part of the meeting. That'll be, so. That's all I have.
Does anybody have any new business?
Just wanted to bring up that the open meeting law has changed.
It's a lot, actually.
Might be good if we had some sort of a review on what our obligations are under the new law.
I can email you guys, something that was sent to me,
Oh, that'd be good.
put together by our Secretary of State. Dennis Copeland, Dan Copeland. And, other, coworkers, in her staff. And then I think I fell asleep when I woke up and realized that I think VLCT was next
They
in
did
line.
Training.
And so it's a training that you can,
Right.
you know,
And we
I
could,
just think we need to be aware of it because
I don't know the difference between what was and what is. It seems like the same, but I didn't put to memory.
Yeah.
The old, the old new open meeting law and the new.
I just want to make sure we're in compliance.
absolutely, yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll do some research on that as well. And I do believe there's a training that VLCT is putting together, and I will attempt to attend that training. It's usually a virtual training, so that I would probably attend with the town of Whitingham anyway. They're also, just because you reminded me of that, VEPSA is supposed to be doing a board of trustee conference, a 1-day conference at some point to talk about the state of the industry. That was something we decided on last year as being really important because we all hear it all the time as the directors at our VEPSA meetings, but it's hard for us to relay to you guys what we're being told. And we had a really great presentation last year at our offsite that we went to where that was discussed. And we kind of said this really is something that'd be awesome for our board of trustees to attend. So once I have more information, that's usually around April. But if you're interested in attending, that would be it's probably going to be it was Middlebury, or I'm sorry, it wasn't Middlebury, it was Montpelier last year at the Capitol Plaza. So it is a trip. It's a halfway point, right? But it was
Plaza got flooded though.
it was right after the flood. There was some question whether we'd make it, but so that it is it's a really great, if the presentation is anything like it was last year, it's just really eye-opening to see where we're at as an industry and where we're headed. And things are changing pretty substantially this year with the way the legislature is made up and what that is going to look like without the supermajority, and a lot of the talk about some of the fuel surcharge taxes coming down a little bit potentially. So that it's an interesting thing. So just keep that in the back of your mind if you're able to do it. At least one of us, some maybe one or two of board members go up. It's one thing for me to say, it's a whole nother thing when you have, people from the industry coming in and saying, I think it's very valuable. So keep that in mind if you're able to. I think that'd be helpful. That's all I have.
Okay. I
Move we adjourn.
second.
8:09.
8:09. We are adjourned.
Cool.